It's no longer just about the cost of living. Protests in Iran entering their third week despite evidence of a ferocious crackdown and the shutting of the internet. Each time it boils over, the context differs, but the under-sanctions Islamic Republic has always outlasted previous movements. Why should this one be any different? Among the variables, there's maximum pressure from the U.S. that culminated in support for Israel's 12-day bombing campaign last summer and extends to fresh threats of retribution. In the past, like during the 2009 Green Movement, the West's been hesitant to further squeeze a nation where its ordinary citizens would bear the brunt of sanctions. We'll ask if Europe wants to also up the pressure this time. And then there's always the nothing to lose factor. One of the clear signs that the revolution was afoot in 1979 was that elites no longer supported the Shah. Is it a sign that this time it started with Tehran's Grand Bazaar, where merchants were fed up with inflation? Back then, the revolution had a face, Ayatollah Khomeini. In 2026, how far could a leaderless movement go? Today in the France 24 debate, we're asking, can the regime keep a lid on Iran's uprising? And with us, film director Sepideh Farsi, your latest film, the heart-wrenching documentary about Gaza, Put Your Hand on Your Soul and Walk. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Chaura Makaremi, author in French of Women, Life, Freedom, Echoes of a Revolutionary Uprising. Welcome back to the show. Aida Tavakoli, co-founder of the We Are Iranian Students group. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And from Istanbul, journalist Borzu Daragahi, who publishes on borzu.substack.com. Good to see you, Borzu.
It's a pleasure.
You can always listen, like, and subscribe to the France 24 debate wherever podcasts are streamed. 500 or 5,000 killed. Impossible to say how many have died. But a movement that spread much faster than the past has now been met by a crackdown ramped up in a hurry. Eyewitnesses speak of demonstrators mowed down by machine guns. In French newspaper Libération, Sepideh Farsi, you write of emotions that swing from anguish to hope. When you wrote the piece, were you leaning more towards hope, and where are you leaning right now?
I go back and forth 20 times a day at least. It changes with every video you get, every news you get or you don't get, and on things that you imagine. I've been imagining for the past 4 days what exactly is going on, because we do get bits of news, but really bits only, and the rest we build up in our minds.
Since Thursday,
yes,
no news. And you were, before going on air, you were saying the same thing.
Yep.
Almost.
What
have you gotten in terms of news?
Well, the images that you showed, we got them on Friday. Other shots of the same morgue in Kahrizak, for instance, and others, and text messages saying that we are waiting for you to push so that the blackout breaks. I mean, personal messages that come through friends who have access to Starlink, because that was the last kind of connection that Iranians had. And when the regime cut the electricity in some parts of the city, I guess they know where the Starlink operates more. That has fallen also, not completely, but a lot.
Borzu Daragahi, any luck getting through?
No, actually, it's been just kind of complete silence since Thursday evening. A little worried about some of the people that I'm in touch with, people who are our acquaintances as well as political activists and so on. So yeah, it's been rather spooky. Other than the very grim videos of of bodies, basically, and grieving relatives looking through the bodies for their loved ones.
Everything's happening faster this time, it feels, Chaura Makaremi. When you think back to the Women, Life, Freedom movement, started in one town, then it gradually spread. Here, it's gone like wildfire, and now the crackdown seems to be going like wildfire, at least from what we can ascertain.
Yes, absolutely. But this movement is building also upon the previous movement. And now it's clear for everyone that since 2017, so it's almost a decade now, we have had the revolts that were against the Islamic Republic, against the theocracy, while before the resistance movement or the protest movement were more reformist. So there is something that is building up on really a protest movement that wants to topple down this regime. So it's a revolutionary movement on the long run, but everything is going very fast this time, also because the economic situation has worsened very much. And also because there is the geopolitical situation is not the same. You know, since Israel's war on Gaza, it's not the same. And we have entered, since October 2023, a totally different narrative of wars, enemies, the peoples in the Middle East have disappeared from the scene, and it's only states that are making war to each other. So in this situation, everything that the Iranian people can do is totally interdependent and connected to this great power politics that is against all the people. Whatever happens, you know, it's not something that the people can, you know, modulate or, you know, kind of try to navigate in their own interest. And that's the problem. But however, the Iranian people, the Iranian society seems to be very steadfast in its will to free itself from the theocracy. And people are risking their lives today at a different scale than it was the case before. I think.
We're unable to confirm, we're trying to, accounts of machine guns being used by the regime. Aida Tavakoli, have you had any news at all since Thursday?
No news since Thursday. It's, I believe, the longest we've gone with a blackout in Iran, and it's by far the most violent one. It's a massacre. Those are crimes against humanity that has to be qualified as such. This is the first point. The second point is the emergency for a political action, not military action. I mean, civilian people in Iran, we said it, this is a movement that has been building for almost a decade. And I would say even for 47 years, actually, because each movement, each protest actually feeds the next one and gets the civil society closer to the fall of the Islamic regime. Today, they have never been so close to the fall. Like, it has never been, we have never been in a situation where their proxies are lastingly weakened. They are weakened from inside as well. The economic situation, the water situation, the civil society today have no choice but going in the streets. Some of them would say, well, why do you want me to go back? Because I have nothing. What would I do if I go back? What would I eat if I go back home? The streets are the only place where I can actually be right now. So there is no going back.
Let me play devil's advocate here, Aida, because it's we're sitting in a climate-controlled studio in Paris. We're looking at it from the outside. In 2022, we had those. We followed it on Instagram, and the images there were of women cutting locks of their own hair on social media. In 2026, well, it's setting alight images of the supreme leader while smoking a cigarette. I'm sure you've seen these images that are making the rounds. So we're on the outside looking in. This is our perception of what's going on. How do you manage that perception?
I'm deeply inspired and impressed by this tremendous courage. I would like to express also, like to insist on the way, the tools that the Iranian civil society chose for themselves as a first step to self-determination to fight the regime. The regime is using, we said it, they are using arms, are using weapon, tremendous violence against the civil society. But the civil society has chosen the social media, they have chosen nonviolent tools, they have chosen to create content about love, about music, about hope, about life. The woman life freedom movement itself, those three words themselves, they are at the core of the resistance and the identity of the civil society of Iran. And this is just the contrast between the way the Islamic regime violently, cruelly just commits crimes against humanity, against the civilians, and how they have been fighting non-violently for 3 years. This must also inspire us as democratic countries to take sides today, to take clear sides, and not just support them with words or, they are concrete political actions that can be taken from the UN, from the European Union, from the states. It's not about just asking or demanding the regime to respect international law. We know they don't. We know who they are, and we know who the civil society of Iran is. So, yeah, we should take concrete actions.
Borzo Dargahi, last Thursday when we were discussing the protests in this very studio, panelists were pointing like Ida to the experience of 2022 and saying they were meshing it with the previous protests, which had been more about cost of living, with what was a social movement in 2022, and saying, well, this time we've gained experience, but will it be enough?
I don't think it's enough. I don't think that protests are going to bring down this regime. I think that this is a regime that is using the technologies of the 20th century, the political tools of the 20th century. I don't think that social media, I don't think memes, I don't think even public protests are going to help. I don't even think that sanctions are going to help. This is already the most sanctioned regime in the world, one of the most sanctioned. Cuba and Iran. Iran, in some ways, even more isolated than Cuba, and still the regime maintains monopoly of violence. I think that I have come to believe that protests are jumping the gun. I have come to believe that people in Iran should organize first. They should take lessons from the Islamic Republic itself and how it came to power using secret networks at mosques and religious schools. I think that the Iranians need that protests are the last step just before a national strike, and that coming out too early, it just risks reducing their cadres, their supporters, because this is a regime that will not bow to Martin Luther King, Gandhi style civil disobedience tactics. They will kill. They have proven that they will kill. If you look at it from the regime's point of view, they will fight to the death. These are not guys who are going to go and enjoy exile years in Venezuela. These are people who will fight and die for their country, and more crucially, they will kill. And so there needs to be a shift in strategy, a deepening of an opposition organization, a culture of opposition, and not just heading out into the streets. That looks good on social media, but will the regime bow to this? No.
Sepideh Farsi, in that op-ed piece that you penned for Libération, the French newspaper, you talked about the fact that there's been 2,200 plus executions already this year, in the past year in Iran.
Yes, but I kind of disagree with, not that disagree, but I have a different vision of what Borzo Dargahi was exposing here. And I remember once a program that we did here, indeed, when the elections were going on, and you were, if I remember correctly, saying that there was hope that by participating in the elections when Pezeshkian was running after Raisi's death, there was hope for change. I think people have lost that hope for change, and there is no preparation. It would have been very good if we could have that, but when people lose more than half of their their possibility to buy and the money, their wealth in 1 year, when they are below the poverty level, 1 Iranian out of 2, most probably, or maybe even more, they don't think, they have nothing to lose. Basically, they just go forward because the year has been very deadly, because there has been repression, because there was war, attacks by Israel, which made things worse in Iran. So I think it's true that it would have been wonderful if we could program and make a shift in we Iranians inside, I mean, not us. But facing a dictatorship like that, I think that people are definitely.
But are they jumping the gun? That's what Borzou is saying.
Well, they might, because they've been holding the streets for more than 2 weeks now. This is the third week, and it's deadly. It is. I mean, we are losing great people there, and I bow to their courage. But if they wait to in a dictatorship, you cannot organize. It is a full-fledged dictatorship. So how would they? I mean, union workers are all in jail. You know. All the dissidents are in jail. I mean, everything is illegal. Students' unions are banned. Teachers' unions are banned. All the unions are banned. How are they supposed to organize? I think they have organized in a way, but I think that our role here, from here outside, is one, to break the blackout. Europe has to take position, a clear
How
position.
do you break that blackout?
Well, Starlink is there. Let's use it.
But the signal's being jammed from inside.
Not fully. It's still working. That's why how we get some images. If there is more of it, if there is more help, it might work better. I mean, in 2009, they sent packages, internet packages. America sent internet packages to Iran. In 2022, we sent VPN from here. I mean, there are ways to help, you know, not against the full blackout, but I mean, Starlink is one of the means, and diplomatic, you know, sanctions, real sanctions, not just, as Ida was saying, not just say, please stop killing people, but real sanctions will help.
Chaura Makaremi, of course, if you have a full internet blackout, it means that, for instance, the equivalent of Uber drivers can't work. There's a lot of the Iranian economy that grinds to a halt. So how long will that last, this full blackout?
I don't know, absolutely don't know. But the thing is that what the political and economic choices of the Iranian government in the last years made it clear that economic prosperity, or even, you know, keeping the country functional economically, was not the priority of the government. The priority of the government was to keep this kind of predatory, you know, economy in the hand of the guardians of the revolution, functioning so that they don't defect. And they have actually, you know, we're always talking about the defection of the elite as being, you know, what triggers revolution and can make a difference.
Because we saw what happened in neighboring Syria, right, where the state apparatus, the security apparatus was underpaid, came a point where suddenly it felt like a house of cards.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, yes, absolutely. But what has to be reminded here is that the 12 days war of Israel on Iran on last June made it clear that in the guardians of the revolution, there were a lot of people who were bought by the Mossad, who were working with the Mossad. They gave information. If there was not such a high level of infiltration of Israeli intelligence within the Iranian security apparatus, how could they target the way they did? How could they organize? They brought in, you know, missiles 2 years beforehand. So the economic elite has already some kind of defection. They send their children abroad with all the money so that they can invest and you know, counter, you know, go beyond the sanctions, buy things in the West, and then bring back the money. But the children don't bring back the money. So there are a lot of kinds of defection and kind of, you know, falling apart coming from the elite, but it's not organized the way we are used to see elite defection. So my question is, when will these, you know, kind of falling apart of a system that used to be ideologically very strong, but now is only driven by its own interest in a very predatory economic way, when will this have some impact in the political structure?
So, Borzou Dargahi, let me just read to you. This was a tweet put out. And by the way, the French, German, and Italian, and UK ambassadors were hauled in for a dressing down in Tehran this Monday for their support for the protest. The former Belgian Prime Minister, Guy Verhofstadt, the ex-head of the Liberals in the European Parliament, this is what he tweeted. Why Europe and the European nations have still not cut the diplomatic ties with the Mullah regime? Why they still not put the Revolutionary Guards on the terrorist list? When will they stop their appeasement policy and start to recognize the democratic rights of the Iranian people? Good questions, Borzou?
No, I think he's like ill-informed, and it's pointless to put the IR. I mean, these, like I said, this is already one of the most economically isolated regimes in the world. Anyone who says mullah regime at this point, I just kind of tend to discredit, because it's not really a mullah regime in general. And I used to respect this guy, and I saw that tweet, and it made me kind of like not respect him that much. There's no appeasement policy on the part of Europeans. There is a lack of bandwidth on the part of Europeans because they're dealing with the Ukraine war and a US administration that appears to be emerging as a kind of enemy. So I don't think there's any appeasing of Iran at this point. Look, I think it's useless to put outside pressure on this country in the way that those people are describing. The best thing in terms of outside pressure would be a real government in exile, for example. How come the Syrian opposition had a kind of much cooler outside opposition? The Libyans' opposition abroad was much better. Even the Iraqi opposition abroad was much better than the opposition that we have. Frankly, our opposition abroad sucks. And they don't have a umbrella government. And there's been 47 years since the revolution. There's been no unity between, like-minded people. Okay, we can keep the, extremist, leftist MEK out of it. But why is there not a coalition between leftists, liberals, and monarchists and nationalists? Why are they always fighting each other and arguing against each other? Why, as you're showing here, why are they waving foreign flags? It should be only Iranian flags. Take a lesson from Trump, Iran first, and so on. Why is there no unity among people abroad, and no umbrella organization? That would be pressure. That would be intimidating. And that would also show the world that there is a responsible set of Iranians who could take the reins in case there is regime change in Tehran.
Ida Tavakoli?
Well, if I may, I deeply disagree, not about what you said about what is happening abroad, but as the president of We Are Iranian Students, it's an association that works closely with all the students inside of Iran. May I remind us that 40% of Iranian population is under 40 years old, 70%, I'm sorry, is under 40 years old. So it's a very young and dynamic population. The students we are working with every day teach us what democracy means. They are from very diverse ethnic groups, confessions, political opinion. They are all capable of democratically debating together. They teach us what it means to work together within a framework that allows the diversity of opinion to exist. So this huge part of the Iranian population inside the civil society is completely ready for organizing. But as Sepideh Farsi said very accurately, under such dictatorship and repression, spaces for organizing the civil society and political unions are completely, taken from the population. But what we can do from outside is create the space for this population to be able to organize, to be able to create unions for this opposition that does exist. We have tremendous intellectuals inside of the Evin prison that is called the Evin University, because all the political leaders, all the political activists that are experimented, that have diverse view, that are feminists, ecologists, that are leftists, rightists, they are all in Iran. They exist. They have a vision for the future of Iran. The youth is ready for a democratic and secular country. The problem is that from outside, we had absolutely no support. If I may just take the Serbian example of 2000. Well, the civil society association that were fighting against the dictatorship of Milosevic, they received funds from the US, funds from the European Union. They had offices. They had means to manage manage their actions. They had training from a Harvard professor of nonviolent actions. They had training from an American general who taught them how to organize inside the streets and not be caught by the repression forces. We are Iranian students, an association in France. Just to give you an example, it took us 1 year just to open a simple bank account. Why? Because we had Iranian inside our title. So this opening means, for example, to send money to support the strikes. Opening means for them to have the possibility of having internet, the Starlink options, creating space for this civil society that has everything that it takes to organize and create real.
So the French government, for instance, should be doing more, is what you're saying.
Well, the entire international community that pretends to support the civil society and the democracy in Iran. I mean, they have been teaching us what democracy means for so long. We are not supporting them.
So there is one face that's been supported, it seems, in the last 15 days, doing the rounds on U.S. television. The son of the late Shah of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, whose name has even been chanted at times during protests, much to the surprise of many can remember the regime of his father. Oliver Farry has that story.
Protesters on the streets of Tehran brandish the lion and sun flag, the imperial banner of the Shah's Iran, and chant the slogan, "It's the final battle, Pahlavi's coming back." Reza Pahlavi, the son of the last Shah, had called on protesters to take to the streets in recent days.
از همه شما می‌خواهم که به صورت گروهی با دوستان و اعضای خانواده.
Pictured here, aged 14, beside his father, Reza Pahlavi fled Iran after the Islamic Revolution overthrew the imperial regime. He presents himself as a rallying force, but as the heir to an authoritarian regime notorious for its corruption and decadence, he's not universally popular.
The ones who are chanting these pro-monarchy slogans are usually young people. It is far from sure that their grandparents would be so supportive. Many find the Pahlavi's past hard to stomach.
Donald Trump does not wish to meet Pahlavi for now, but did declare on Sunday night that Washington is prepared to help the protesters.
So, Sepideh Farsi, how do you build answering Borzou's call there, how do you build a coalition that's wide and broad that represents different facets of Iranian society when you're abroad? Do you let in or not Reza Pahlavi? Do you let in or not this group that he was talking about, the MEK?
Oh, MEK, I think everybody agrees on not letting them in. But
okay.
I agree on that with Borzou. The opposition outside Iran sucks. That's true. We have not been able to organize well enough. We have to be better. We should have been better. It's not too late. And why not let Reza Pahlavi in, but not as a leader, as one of the opponents of this opposition, which is wide. The problem is that many people would not agree with that, and certainly would not agree with accepting him as a leader by default, because in a country, I was, I would not comparing the two situations because the Shah's, the father, Mohammad Reza Shah's, the reign in Iran is not comparable with what we have had now, because we went from one dictatorship to something much worse now with the Islamic regime. In terms of poverty, in terms of deprivation of freedom and dictatorship, it's by far more violent than what Shah's regime was, but that also was a dictatorship. That was why we had that vacuum in the dissident voices that allowed Khomeini and the mullahs to take over. One of the reasons of that was that. And now we have the same pattern in terms of the vacuum, political vacuum, which we already discussed a little bit. How are we supposed to organize? Inside already. And so outside, we have been poor and we have been not efficient. That is true. But in order to build something, we have to also give a chance for a democratic debate, not just bringing somebody from abroad who has different TV channels, who nobody else has. None of the other factions of the opposition has access to Manoto, to Iran International. Where does the money come from? We do not know. Does not have the Israel support. I'm sure you've heard of that article in Haaretz saying, explaining, brilliantly how Israel invested on bringing Pahlavi up on the timeline for months, actually, and more than a year, by spending money. It is money. So no other part of the opposition factions had access to that kind of communication means and tools. So you have to make it fair to make it democratic, So if he's brought from abroad, I wouldn't find it democratic. People inside Iran, of course, are desperate. They are desperate. So they call for a leader. There is no other leader.
Let me bring that question to Shaura Makaremi. A broader question, which is the one that was just posed there by Sepide, which is, does this movement need a leader?
Well, it's a lot of revolution didn't have a leader beforehand, and even if you look at the '79 revolution in Iran, the figure of Khomeini, the way it was built, was very different from his actual political project, the way he instituted it and put it in place while he was in the country. But what I want to say is that focusing on the question of leadership, for me, is a kind of in discrepancy. There's a little gap with actually the real momentum, what is going on right now. Because once again, I think that the elite defection is really the center point in the Iranian case. Because every other, every other point is met. The economic situation, the situation of the international situation of Iran, the maturity of the protest movement, the radical demands, everything, every milestone is met. But there is this question of the elite defections. And I think that one point about the international community, the European Union and the US, that is very important is that in the previous uprisings, from 2009 on, each time the Iranian street rised up, the international community took advantage of what the Iranians achieved against their state in order to negotiate a nuclear deal with the Iranian state. So the message here is that each time, the Iranian state is put at the risk and at the danger by their own street, you have international community coming on and negotiating with the regime, reinstituting the regime, and showing the Iranian society that there is the state is here to stay because the international community, the interest of the international community is having this nuclear deal, not helping any kind of democratic process. And this is also what is preventing defection in Iran. And this is very important because right now, today, Trump said that he's ready to meet with the Iranians. Right now, we know that delegation in Oman has fled to Tehran. We know that the U.S. Diplomats are in Oman also negotiating. So there is this kind of perspective of a new deal coming on, taking the fruits of the work of the Iranian street out of the hands of the Iranian society that is organized. And maybe a last thing I want to say that is very important about the opposition is that I agree that it sucks, but I think that in the context of 40 years of dictatorships, 47 years of totalitarianism and terror, it produces very suspicious political subjects, traumatized political subjects. And you cannot ask, this is the product. And it's the same with the Syrian opposition. It's the same with the Russian opposition. These living this experience of terror and authoritarianism makes it difficult to organize and to work together, and we should acknowledge that.
All right, first an uprising, then a negotiation. You're saying Donald Trump keeping Tehran guessing. On Sunday night, he hinted at strikes and talks in the same breath. Here's an exchange aboard Air Force One.
There seem to be some people killed that aren't supposed to be killed. These are violent, if you call them leaders, I don't know if they're leaders or just they rule through violence. but we're looking at it very seriously. The military is looking at it, and we're looking at some very strong options. We'll make a determination.
So, Borzar Dargahi, at the beginning, the reporter's question is, on Iran, have they crossed your red line yet to trigger a response? In the beginning, before the mic gets in there, Trump says, well, no, they're starting. And then you heard the rest of what he says. Do you agree there with Chawra that it's, at the end of the day, it's not the Iranian people who are going to win. It's going to be some kind of a deal between Washington and the current regime?
Well, I would quibble just a little bit with what was said before, but I just don't think the timelines quite match in terms of the nuclear breakthroughs. There were other factors that came with negotiations, including, elections in Iran and so on, that changed the political dynamic, and elections in the U.S. that changed the political dynamic. I'm not quite sure if it was as instrumentalized, those protests as described. I just think that you can't do this kind of thing from abroad with foreigners in a country like Iran. And I don't think that the air, the oxygen that the regime is getting is because of, Western acquiescence or deal making and so on. I think that it's really Russia and China.
How do you read the remarks by Donald Trump? Is he want to negotiate?
He wants a deal. He doesn't care about human rights in Iran. He doesn't care about human rights in the United States. Let's be frank. He wants to apply pressure. This is a continuation of the maximum pressure policy that we saw in his first term. He wants a deal. He wants to see what he can get. It's Donald Trump. I hate to be kind of cute about this, but the Iranians should offer him. The Iranian regime should offer him a Trump Tower, Tehran, in the north of Tehran, and they'll get whatever they want. Because I don't think this is a man who has those kind of principles. I don't think his track record on war and peace is not very good. His track record on respecting human rights is not very good. So I don't think that he honestly, at his core, gives a damn about what the Iranian people want.
Among those, by the way, in attendance, staying in the United States at Sunday night's Golden Globe Awards was Jafar Panahi, the Iranian filmmaker for It Was Just an Accident. He was nominated, most notably for Best Director. The film shot on the sly inside of Iran about dissidents who encounter what they believe to be a former torture. Juan Panahi, the Golden Palm at Cannes. Panahi, who's been jailed numerous times, expressing his concern over the cut in communications of the past days. They saw a post over Instagram. Even though he was sentenced last month in absentia to 1 year behind bars for, quote, propaganda activities, Panahi repeatedly stating he will return to Iran despite the message of his latest movie.
اصلا مهم نیست که دیده باشن یا دیده نباشن یا برخوردشون چی باشه.
It really doesn't matter if they've seen it or not or how they're going to treat me.
من به یک کاری کردم هزینه داره هزینه‌اش هم میپردازم.
I've done something, it comes with a price and I'll pay it.
Sepideh Farsi, your reactions listening to that?
I think he has showed that he is ready to, well, pay the price. And we certainly need people to. I think he knows what he's saying, and he's done it in the past. So we'll wait for him to.
It's incredible, this movie. I mean, I'm asking you, the filmmaker, about this.
No, about the movie. No, I thought you wanted me to react on what he was just saying.
But just the fact that he was able to sort of.
It is incredible. I mean, Iran is full of paradoxes. It's the country that has one of the greatest cinematographies recently, more marked in the world, and with the least of means and with the least of liberty and freedom. Many of the very remarkable films have been shot underground without permission. And this is something that I've experienced, myself also. We are a number of people, while I was still able to go. I mean, I have a film called Tehran Without Permission, which I just shot with a mobile phone. But Panahi, Rasulov, many other filmmakers have been doing this, the terrestrial verses also, and many other younger, older filmmakers. And this is, I think artists are part of the landscape of the Iranian people resisting this regime and the rupture the fracture, cultural fracture between the people, the civilian society and the regime. This has been there for a long time.
And is this true across all 31 provinces? Iran is a very
big country.
It's a very big country.
Yes, and it has crossed even to the furthest and most remote and very
conservative at times.
Conservative, yes, but also,
Socially.
I mean, Balochistan, for instance, is a very poor province and one of the most repressed, where the crackdown is one of the worst and least covered. And they came out. Kids, like 14-year-old kids, were arrested, and women were tortured. There was a massacre there, and we don't know much about it, as usual, because news travel less from Balochistan than from Tehran, of course.
So you have, on the one hand, the resourcefulness, as proven by the fact that this movie, shot in secret, wins the Golden Palm at Cannes, and is goes on for nominations in the U.S. And on the other hand, the shutting of the internet, the crackdown.
Yes, exactly. I think this demonstrates the power of and the dynamic of the Iranian civil society. Just to get back to Trump, I completely agree with what has been said. He does not care about human rights, nor in his country or anywhere else, but he does care about the oil that China is buying from the Islamic Republic, just as he did for Venezuela. And second, he cares about his image. He has been talking about how he is a leader of the free world and how he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. And the two options that he is considering with the Islamic regime right now, none of them can satisfy his interests. The military action would put the civilian society in danger. It would completely empty the streets, and it would also set the region on fire. The negotiation, on the other hand, would just allow the regime to stay in power, and this would not, this would not serve his interest as this image of the free world. The only option is to actually take side for the civilian society, to suggest a plan for a democratic transition, very clear, with a calendar, with free election, asking, and he was questioning the fact of, is the Islamic regime still the leader of Iran? He should answer this question by a clear answer. No, he should diplomatically say that the Islamic regime is no longer the legitimate representative of the civil society of Iran, and that election should take place to guarantee the right of self-determination of Iranian people.
We're out of time. Chawra Makaremi, just in one sentence, the internet, it's been out since Thursday. How long can it stay out like this?
I absolutely don't know how long. I hope that we can have some news very, very, very soon. I don't know.
A full internet blackout.
One thing that might help is that internet is also used in transactions in Iran, and like Instagram, people sell and buy. I heard that might be a reason for the regime to put it back. Not in too long, hopefully.
Hopefully. We'll leave it there for now. Sepideh Farsi, I want to thank you. I want to thank Chawra Makaremi. I want to thank as well Aida Tavakoli, Borzu Dargahi for joining us from Istanbul. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.